Hey, welcome to Audiobook Tone. In the next few minutes, you're going to learn how to manage your emotions so you can stay calm, clear, and in control without shutting yourself off from the people and experiences that matter. We'll explore how to release emotions without clinging, observe them without being consumed, set boundaries that preserve your energy, and build quiet strength that lets you face life with confidence. You'll also discover how to love deeply without losing yourself and master presence so you stay engaged without being overwhelmed. Stick with me through the entire video, because these strategies can transform how you handle stress, relationships, and challenges. Hit subscribe for more actionable guidance that will help you grow, stay disciplined, and build long-term emotional strength. Number 1, feel fully. Release without attachment. To feel fully is to honor the depth of your humanity. It means giving yourself permission to experience what arises inside you without judgment or resistance. Many people spend their lives trying to outrun their emotions, burying pain, numbing fear, distracting themselves from loneliness, or clinging to joy and fear of losing it. But this resistance only traps the emotion deeper within. To feel fully is not weakness, it is a form of strength. It is the courage to sit in the fire of your own experience without needing to control it. When you learn to feel deeply, you learn to live deeply. Yet the key is to release without attachment, to feel what you feel without letting it define who you are. Every emotion has energy. Joy expands, fear contracts, grief weighs heavy, love feels warm and light. When you repress or deny an emotion, that energy stays stuck inside, shaping your reactions and your worldview in hidden ways. But when you allow it to flow, when you simply notice it, breathe through it, and let it pass, you free yourself from emotional residue. The act of release is not forgetting or avoiding. It is acknowledging the emotion's presence, understanding its message, and then allowing it to leave when it has served its purpose. Detachment begins here, not in shutting off your heart, but in learning how to let emotions move through you instead of ruling you. Consider how water behaves when it meets a rock. It doesn't resist or fight. It flows around it. In the same way, emotional mastery is not about hardening yourself. It's about learning to flow with life. Pain, disappointment, rejection, all are inevitable. But suffering arises when you grip too tightly, when you refuse to let go of what has already moved on. Feeling fully means you stand in the river of experience and allow the current to carry you forward, rather than clutching at the stones of the past. When something painful happens, the first impulse is often to either suppress or exaggerate it. Suppression creates numbness. Exaggeration amplifies suffering. The balance lies in awareness. When you feel sadness, breathe into it. Notice where it sits in your body, the heaviness in your chest, the lump in your throat. Name it gently. This is sadness. Then observe it with compassion, as if you were watching clouds pass across the sky. In doing so, you remove the story your mind attaches to it. I shouldn't feel this way, or this always happens to me. Those stories keep you stuck. But when you separate the pure feeling from the mental narrative, you allow emotion to express itself and then dissolve naturally. Releasing without attachment also means accepting that emotions are temporary visitors, not permanent residents. Everything changes. Joy fades, sorrow lightens, excitement cools. Life's rhythm is made of these waves. When you try to cling to happiness or resist loss, you fight against the natural order. Detachment is understanding that both pleasure and pain are transient, that your peace should not depend on either. A calm mind doesn't deny emotion, it simply doesn't drown in it. There is great wisdom in being able to feel something intensely and still remain centered. Imagine standing in a storm but knowing the ground beneath your feet is unshakable. That stability comes from awareness. When you feel anger, you can observe it without becoming the anger. When you feel joy, you can appreciate it without clinging to it. When you feel grief, you can honor its depth without being consumed. This is emotional maturity, the art of allowing everything but attaching to nothing. In practice, this begins with presence. When an emotion arises, pause. Feel it in real time instead of analyzing it. Breathe deeply and ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Emotions are not enemies, they are messengers. Anger might be asking for boundaries. Fear might be reminding you to prepare. Sadness might be calling you to slow down and reflect. Once you understand the message, thank the emotion and let it go. You are not the emotion. You are the awareness that witnesses it. This separation between self and feeling is the essence of freedom. Most people say, I am angry or I am sad, but anger and sadness are not who you are. They are experiences passing through you. When you identify too strongly with them, you create attachment. You begin to protect your pain, replay it, build stories around it. But when you shift language and perspective, I'm feeling anger right now, you remind yourself it is temporary. You can watch it, learn from it, and release. Releasing does not mean pretending you don't care. It means you care deeply but are not enslaved by the outcome. You can love someone fully and still let them go if they must leave. You can grieve deeply and still choose peace. You can face failure and still hold faith. Releasing is not apathy, it is grace. It is the ability to bow to life's impermanence with open hands rather than clenched fists. The Stoics called this inner freedom, the ability to accept what is outside your control and focus only on your own response. In daily life, the practice of feeling fully and releasing without attachment might look like this. When someone criticizes you, instead of reacting defensively, notice the sting, breathe, and observe what it triggers inside you. Does it touch an old insecurity, a fear of rejection? Let yourself feel that, acknowledge it, and then let it pass. You don't need to hold resentment or replay the moment. Learn from it, adjust if needed, and move forward. When joy arises, savor it completely. Taste your coffee slowly. Laugh deeply with a friend. Appreciate a quiet sunset. But don't grasp it with the fear that it will end. It will end, and that's what makes it beautiful. Detachment teaches appreciation without dependence. You can enjoy fully without needing to possess. That's when life becomes vivid, because you stop fearing the end of good moments and start trusting that new ones will come. Emotional detachment is not coldness. It is clarity. It means you can stand in any experience and remain rooted in peace. You still feel, but you no longer drown. You still care, but you no longer cling. You still love, but you no longer lose yourself. This balance creates quiet confidence. You stop chasing external validation because your worth no longer depends on what you feel or what others make you feel. You live from within, not from reaction. As you practice, you'll notice how your relationships shift. You'll argue less, listen more, and stop trying to fix everything for everyone. You'll start allowing others their emotions too, without needing to absorb them. You'll realize that everyone is responsible for their own inner world. Compassion grows, but dependency fades. You love more freely because you no longer fear loss. You've learned to release. The process isn't easy. It takes awareness, patience, and daily discipline. Some days you'll fall back into attachment, clinging to a person, a feeling, or a memory. That's okay. Notice it, breathe, and gently release again. Like training a muscle, emotional mastery strengthens through repetition. Each moment of awareness brings you closer to freedom. Eventually, you will find a calmness that does not depend on circumstances. You'll still feel everything: joy, pain, excitement, sadness, but you'll also know that beneath them all lies a quiet stillness, unshaken by the waves. That stillness is your true self. Every emotion passes across its surface, but it remains untouched, vast, and serene. To feel fully and release without attachment is the art of being alive without being enslaved. It's meeting life with open arms and an open heart, trusting that whatever comes will also go. You stop fighting the tide and begin flowing with it. In that flow, you discover the deepest peace, a peace that comes not from avoiding emotion but from mastering it. And in that mastery, you rediscover your freedom, the freedom to love, to live, and to let go all at once. Number 2, observe emotions. Don't become them. To observe emotions without becoming them is one of the most transformative skills a person can develop. It is the bridge between chaos and clarity, between living as a prisoner of impulse and standing as a master of inner peace. Most people move through life reacting rather than responding. Something happens, and before they can even think, emotion takes control. Anger bursts out, fear freezes them, sadness weighs them down. They become the emotion rather than the awareness behind it. True emotional strength begins when you create space between what you feel and who you are. Observation gives you power. It allows you to see emotions as waves passing through the ocean of your consciousness rather than defining the ocean itself. The moment you say, "I am angry," you merge your identity with the feeling. The moment you shift that to "I notice anger arising in me," you regain perspective. You step out of the storm and begin to witness it from a distance. That small shift in awareness changes everything. It's the difference between drowning and watching the tide from the shore. This ability is not about suppression or control. It's about awareness. When you suppress emotions, you bury them alive. When you control them forcefully, they only return stronger. But when you observe them calmly, they dissolve naturally. Observation is a form of gentle strength. It's like holding a trembling animal with care rather than fear. You let it tremble until it's calm, but you never let it bite you. Emotions, too, lose their bite when met with understanding instead of reaction. Observation begins with slowing down. When you feel something strong, anger, jealousy, fear, pause before you speak or act. Take a breath and feel the emotion move through your body. Maybe your chest tightens, your stomach knots, or your heart races. Notice these sensations. Don't judge them or try to stop them. Just observe. Awareness alone starts to break the chain of automatic reaction. By seeing what is happening inside, you step outside the pull of emotion's gravity. Imagine standing in front of a mirror during a thunderstorm. You can see the lightning flash and hear the thunder rumble, but you are safe indoors. Observation creates that same safety inside the mind. The storm may rage, but you watch it with calm detachment, knowing it will pass. Emotional observation is not cold indifference. It is intelligent distance. It's the understanding that your emotions are valid but temporary, real but not absolute, powerful but not in control. Each emotion carries information. Fear warns of danger or uncertainty. Anger signals that a boundary may have been crossed. Sadness points to something lost or unresolved. The key is to decode the message without letting the messenger take over. When you become the emotion, the message is lost in reaction. When you observe it, you can learn from it and make conscious choices. The emotion becomes a teacher rather than a tyrant. Daily life offers countless opportunities to practice this. Someone cuts you off in traffic. You feel irritation rise. Instead of shouting or clenching your fists, take that moment to notice your body's reaction. Ask yourself, what's happening inside me right now? You'll realize the irritation isn't about the driver. It's about your expectation of respect or control. Awareness exposes the real cause, and once you see it, the emotion loses its hold. You remain calm, centered, and free. Observation also protects your peace in relationships. When someone speaks harshly to you, it's natural to feel hurt or defensive. But if you can observe that initial sting rather than become it, you'll see beyond their words. You might notice their tone comes from their own frustration or pain. Instead of reacting, you stay grounded and respond with understanding or silence. This is emotional intelligence in action, not letting another storm pull you into chaos. One of the greatest misunderstandings about emotional mastery is the belief that feeling deeply means losing control. The truth is that feeling deeply with awareness brings control of the highest kind. It's not about denying passion or dulling your sensitivity. It's about seeing the full landscape of your inner world without getting lost in it. You can experience the surge of emotion without letting it dictate your words, decisions, or peace of mind. To develop this skill, self-awareness must become a daily discipline. Set aside moments each day to check in with yourself. Notice how you're feeling and name it clearly. I feel restless. I feel content. I feel anxious. Labeling emotions gives your mind structure and reduces their intensity. Then ask what triggered it and whether your reaction serves your peace or harms it. Over time, this simple reflection builds emotional literacy. the ability to understand your internal signals before they control you. In moments of emotional intensity, the breath becomes your anchor. When a wave of anger or fear rises, focus on your breathing. Slow, steady breaths bring you back to the present moment and remind you that you are more than what you feel. The body responds quickly to awareness. As you breathe consciously, tension melts and your mind clears. Observation becomes easier when your breath steadies the body. Emotions also distort perception when left unchecked. When you're anxious, everything feels uncertain. When you're sad, everything looks dim. When you're angry, everything seems unfair. But when you observe rather than become the emotion, you start to see how your perception shifts with your mood. This realization gives you freedom. You no longer treat every thought or feeling as truth. You learn to wait until the storm settles before making decisions, knowing that clarity always follows calm. Observation builds resilience. The more you watch your emotions without reacting, the stronger your inner foundation becomes. Challenges that once overwhelmed you begin to lose power. A harsh comment, a delay, a disappointment. None of it controls your mood anymore. You feel what arises, but it doesn't derail your peace. That stability radiates outward, influencing your relationships, work, and overall sense of confidence. People feel safe around those who are not ruled by emotion, because calm energy is contagious. The practice also deepens compassion. When you understand your own emotional fluctuations, you stop judging others harshly for theirs. You recognize that everyone battles invisible feelings. Instead of reacting to someone's anger or negativity, you can see the pain or confusion beneath it. Observation expands empathy without sacrificing boundaries. You become both soft and strong, a rare combination that creates balance and respect. There will be times when observation feels impossible. Some emotions come with such intensity that awareness feels like trying to hold water in your hands. In those moments, patience is your ally. Even noticing that you're lost in emotion is a form of awareness. Every time you catch yourself and return to observation, you strengthen the habit. Gradually, you'll find that emotions that once swept you away now move through you like passing weather. You remain the sky, vast, constant, unshaken. A disciplined mind does not avoid emotion, it understands it. You cannot stop waves from coming, but you can learn to surf them. Observation is the surfboard. It keeps you afloat, balanced, and graceful even in rough waters. When you stop identifying with emotion, you reclaim choice. You can decide how to speak, how to act, how to think. This is the essence of freedom, responding from wisdom, not impulse. In time, you begin to sense emotions the moment they arise, before they even reach the surface. A subtle awareness emerges, like seeing clouds form before rain begins. You can guide your thoughts early, redirect energy, and maintain composure. This awareness turns reactivity into mindfulness and transforms inner turmoil into clarity. You stop fearing emotions because you know they can no longer control you. The highest mastery is to be fully human yet fully aware, to feel everything but remain anchored in peace. Observing emotions without becoming them allows you to experience life in its richness without losing your center. You still laugh, cry, love, and grieve, but you do so consciously, gracefully, and freely. You become the witness, not the storm. When you live this way, you discover a quiet power that cannot be shaken by circumstance. You realize that peace isn't found by escaping emotion, but by understanding it deeply. Observation gives you that understanding. It teaches that every emotion is temporary, every wave returns to stillness, and every experience carries wisdom if met with awareness. To observe emotions without becoming them is to live with open eyes and a calm heart, to be awake in every moment and free in every feeling. Number 3, pause before reacting. Choose peace. There is a sacred moment that exists between what happens to you and how you respond. It is small, silent, and often overlooked, but within it lies the difference between peace and turmoil, wisdom and regret, growth and destruction. To pause before reacting is to claim that moment as your own. It is to stand at the crossroads of impulse and intention and choose peace instead of chaos. Most people live at the mercy of immediate reactions. Words fly before thought arrives, tempers flare before reason awakens, and decisions are made in the heat of emotion that later burn with remorse. But those who learn the power of the pause discover a calm strength that changes everything about the way they experience life. The pause is not weakness. It is mastery in motion. It is the mind refusing to be dragged by its own emotions. It is the awareness that rises above instinct and asks, what serves my peace right now? Every time you pause, you interrupt the automatic chain of reaction that keeps so many trapped in cycles of anger, anxiety, and defensiveness. You give yourself permission to step out of the storm and into clarity. The moment of silence becomes your shield, your sanctuary, and your strategy. To pause before reacting means creating distance between the spark and the fire. The spark is the trigger, a comment, a mistake, a disappointment. The fire is your reaction, anger, frustration, fear, resentment. If you react instantly, the spark ignites the fire and consumes your peace. But if you pause even for a few seconds, you give yourself time to see things clearly. You allow understanding to enter before emotion takes control. That pause may seem small, but it changes the entire outcome of any situation. Life constantly tests your composure. Someone misunderstands you, delays pile up, plans fall apart. The mind wants to fight, defend, and prove itself right. The pause invites you to breathe instead. When you breathe, you create space for wisdom. The first breath softens your tone. The second steadies your heart. The third clears your thoughts. By the time you've taken a few calm breaths, the urgency to react fades, and peace takes its place. This simple act, repeated daily, reshapes your emotional landscape. In the pause, truth becomes visible. You start to notice that most reactions aren't about the present moment. They're echoes of past wounds. The anger you feel toward a colleague may stem from old frustration. The hurt from a loved one's words may touch a deeper insecurity. The pause gives you time to see the real source of your emotion, so you don't misplace your pain on others. Reaction closes awareness. Reflection opens it. Choosing peace is not about silence or submission. It's about power with purpose. Peace is active. It's the decision to remain steady even when the world around you trembles. It's responding with understanding instead of retaliation. When you choose peace, you refuse to let external chaos dictate your internal state. You become the calm within the storm, influencing others by your composure rather than joining their confusion. To practice this in daily life, begin with small moments. When your phone rings with bad news, don't rush to despair. Pause. Let the information settle before judgment forms. When someone criticizes you, resist the urge to defend immediately. Pause. Ask yourself whether their words reflect truth or projection. When plans fail and frustration rises, pause. Recognize that reacting in anger will not fix what's broken, but may break what's still whole. This habit transforms you from reactive to responsive, from controlled to in control. Every pause builds a muscle of emotional discipline. It trains your nervous system to slow down before acting out. Over time, you realize that reacting instantly never brings satisfaction. The words said in heat always taste bitter later. The decisions made in anger carry unintended consequences. But the moments when you paused, reflected, and then responded with calm intention always brought alignment and self-respect. Peace becomes not something you seek, but something you choose repeatedly through awareness. Pausing also strengthens your relationships. When you respond to others from stillness instead of irritation, trust grows. You start to listen more deeply and speak more wisely. You no longer feed arguments with defensiveness. You dissolve them with composure. People feel safer around someone who doesn't react impulsively. Your calm energy becomes a mirror that helps others find their own steadiness. You stop escalating conflicts and start resolving them by embodying peace instead of demanding it. The pause also reveals the wisdom of patience. Not everything needs an instant response. Sometimes, silence speaks more powerfully than words. Sometimes, waiting brings clarity that haste destroys. When you pause, you remind yourself that timing matters, that reacting too soon can close doors that understanding could have opened. Peace is patient. It knows that truth doesn't need to rush. In moments of stress, Your body often tightens before your mind even realizes it. Shoulders rise, breath shortens, heart rate increases. The pause begins by noticing this. Awareness of the body anchors awareness of the mind. Take one slow breath and let your shoulders drop. Feel the air moving in and out, steady and controlled. This physical calmness creates mental space. In that space, you can ask yourself questions that lead to peace. Is this worth losing my calm over? What outcome do I truly want? Will this matter tomorrow? These questions redirect energy from reaction to reflection. When you pause before reacting, you also reclaim dignity. It's easy to lose yourself in a moment of anger or fear and act in ways that betray your values. But when you pause, you act in alignment with who you truly are, not who your emotions temporarily make you. You respond from integrity, not impulse. You start to build trust with yourself, knowing that you can handle life without being consumed by it. That self-trust is one of the most liberating feelings a person can have. There will be times when the world around you demands immediate reaction. Someone provokes you, circumstances feel urgent, emotions surge. In those moments, the pause feels unnatural, almost impossible. Yet that is exactly when it matters most. The greater the pressure, the greater the need for stillness. Even a few seconds of awareness can shift your entire trajectory. The pause doesn't need to be long, it just needs to be conscious. A single breath can stop a cascade of unnecessary conflict. Choosing peace is an act of rebellion in a world addicted to reaction. It means you value clarity more than dominance, presence more than pride. It means you refuse to let anger, fear, or ego dictate your path. It's a quiet form of courage. To stand still when everything in you wants to strike back, to hold silence when the mind screams to defend, to extend understanding when offense feels easier. That is not passivity. It is emotional wisdom in its purest form. In this practice, humility becomes your ally. You start realizing that not every battle deserves your energy. Not every disagreement needs a response. Not every insult requires defense. You begin to see that peace is not found in proving yourself right, but in staying true to your calm. Some will misunderstand your restraint, mistaking it for weakness, but time reveals that the one who controls their reaction always holds the true strength. Eventually, the pause becomes second nature. You won't need to remind yourself to breathe before speaking, or to think before acting. It will happen naturally, like the body balancing itself when you walk. You'll notice that fewer things disturb you, that emotions visit but do not stay, that conflicts fade faster because you no longer feed them with reaction. You will move through life with quiet assurance, knowing that peace is not the absence of emotion but the mastery of response. To pause before reacting and choose peace is to step out of the chaos of habit and into the discipline of awareness. It's deciding, moment by moment, that nothing is worth losing your inner balance. It's realizing that peace is not given by others, it's chosen by you. And the more you practice this pause, the more you'll find that every situation, no matter how challenging, becomes another chance to demonstrate the power of calm. That is how wisdom is built, not in grand moments of enlightenment, but in the quiet seconds where you pause, breathe, and choose peace again and again until it becomes who you are. Number 4. Detach kindly, not defensively withdrawn. To detach kindly is to walk the fine line between love and freedom, between caring deeply and remaining centered. It is not escape, indifference, or emotional coldness. It is the art of holding peace while staying open to others. Most people mistake detachment for distance. They withdraw, shut down, or build walls to protect themselves from being hurt. But that is not detachment. That is defense. True detachment carries warmth. It allows space for compassion without allowing pain to take root. It is strength wrapped in gentleness, the ability to love fully without losing yourself. Detaching kindly begins with intention. The purpose is not to separate from people, but from the attachment that distorts your perception of them. When you cling to outcomes, expect others to fulfill your needs, or demand that situations go your way, you lose clarity. Detachment restores that clarity by reminding you that you cannot control others, only yourself. Kindness keeps this truth from turning bitter. Instead of pulling away in resentment, You step back with understanding. You say, in essence, I care for you, but I also care for my peace. Kind detachment asks you to stay present without taking everything personally. When someone is upset, you don't absorb their emotions as your own. You listen, you empathize, but you don't internalize. This is not coldness. It's compassion with boundaries. You learn to be available but not consumed, caring but not entangled. It's a form of love that respects both hearts equally. You hold space for another's pain without drowning in it. Defensive withdrawal, on the other hand, is fear in disguise. It says, I'll distance myself before you can hurt me. It's an armor built from past wounds, designed to protect but often imprisoning the heart. When you withdraw defensively, you close yourself off from connection, thinking it's safety. Yet safety without openness becomes loneliness. Kind detachment is different. It's a conscious, graceful step back taken, not out of fear but out of love for balance. You can walk away from drama without carrying resentment. You can remain silent without feeling small. You can release someone without bitterness, simply because peace matters more than proving anything. In practice, detaching kindly means responding instead of reacting when emotions rise. Suppose someone speaks harshly to you. Defensive withdrawal would make you shut down or retaliate. Kind detachment pauses, breathes, and sees the situation clearly. You recognize that their words come from their own struggle, not your worth. You don't need to mirror their energy or internalize their pain. You choose to keep your calm while still wishing them well. That moment of conscious grace changes everything. It ends cycles of conflict and leaves dignity intact. This approach applies not only to people but to situations as well. You can care deeply about your goals without letting outcomes define your value. You can work passionately without becoming consumed by success or failure. You can love someone without needing them to complete you. Kind detachment turns life into a dance rather than a battle. You give your best, then let go of the result. You stay open, yet grounded. You stop trying to control what was never yours to control. One of the most powerful signs of growth is the ability to step back with love instead of anger. It's the moment you no longer need to prove, chase, or convince. You stop begging for understanding and instead embody it. When you detach kindly, you see people as they are, not as your emotions paint them to be. You realize everyone is walking their own path, and their choices, though they may hurt you, are not about you. This realization frees you. It allows you to let others be without trying to fix or change them. Detachment does not mean silence or withdrawal from responsibility. It means speaking truth without hostility and setting boundaries without guilt. You can say no kindly. You can walk away peacefully. You can disengage from arguments without resentment. You start to value calm energy over chaotic control. That quiet clarity sends a message more powerful than any confrontation. I choose peace over drama. People who are used to chaos may not understand this calm at first, but with time, it earns respect. Kind detachment is also essential in love. Many people equate love with attachment, believing that clinging equals caring. But attachment often carries fear, the fear of loss, rejection, or change. True love is not possession, it's freedom. You can love someone deeply while allowing them the space to be themselves. You can support without controlling, care without suffocating, and stay without losing individuality. When you detach kindly, love becomes pure, without the need to own or be owned. It breathes, it flows, it grows without force. To live with kind detachment, you must practice emotional honesty. Notice when your desire to help turns into control, when your care becomes expectation, when your love becomes dependency. These are signs that fear has entered the space where peace should live. The moment you sense it, pause, ask yourself, am I acting from love or from need? Love allows freedom. Need demands control. When you return to love, detachment happens naturally. You no longer grasp, you give, and you trust life to unfold. In daily interactions, detaching kindly looks like not over-explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. It's leaving conversations that drain your spirit instead of forcing resolution with those not ready for peace. It's understanding that silence can sometimes heal more than argument. You detach by honoring your energy and protecting your peace, without harboring ill will. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you deserve freedom from bitterness. Kind detachment also strengthens your inner stability. When you no longer rely on others' approval or external outcomes for peace, your confidence grows naturally. You stop swinging between emotional highs and lows based on circumstances. Instead, your sense of calm comes from within. You handle disappointments with grace, because you know that everything passes. You handle success with humility, because you know that it too is temporary. You begin to live from center, not from circumstance. This practice requires self-awareness. When you feel the urge to pull away completely, ask yourself whether it's kindness or fear driving that urge. If it's fear, soften. If it's resentment, release it. Detachment without kindness becomes isolation. Kindness without detachment becomes exhaustion. Balance both, and you walk with quiet strength. You can hold compassion for others while protecting your own well-being. You can remain open-hearted without being overly available. Kind detachment transforms relationships into conscious connections. You stop trying to control how others treat you and start deciding how you will respond. You begin to love without expectation, listen without judgment, and give without depletion. This shift not only improves how you relate to others, but how you relate to yourself. You become your own safe space, a calm observer of your emotions, a gentle guardian of your energy, a friend to your soul. In time, detaching kindly becomes natural. You will notice yourself staying calm in situations that once unsettled you. You'll find peace where you used to feel urgency. You'll speak with gentleness where you once reacted with frustration. You will still care deeply, but you will no longer carry the burden of trying to fix everything. That lightness is the reward of detachment. It allows you to love freely and live fully without fear. To detach kindly, not defensively withdrawn, is to walk in maturity and grace. It is to remain soft in a hard world, open in a guarded one, present in a distracted one. It's choosing to live with compassion and boundaries coexisting in harmony. You learn that love doesn't require attachment, that peace doesn't mean indifference, and that strength doesn't demand hardness. Kind detachment is the quiet art of staying connected without being controlled, caring deeply without losing yourself, and moving through life with a heart that is both open and at peace. Number 5, accept impermanence. Everything passes naturally. To accept impermanence is to embrace life as it truly is, not as the mind wishes it to be. Everything changes. The seasons shift, people evolve, emotions transform, circumstances rise and fall. Yet the human heart often resists this truth, clinging to what is pleasant and fighting what is painful. We try to hold on to moments of happiness as if they could stay frozen forever, and we push away discomfort as if it has no right to exist. But the deeper wisdom of life whispers that nothing remains the same. Not joy, not sorrow, not even the self we wake up to each morning. Accepting impermanence is not resignation, it is liberation. It is learning to walk through the changing scenery of life with open eyes and a peaceful heart. Impermanence is not cruel. It is what makes everything meaningful. The flower's beauty exists because it will fade. The sunrise stirs awe precisely because it won't last. Love feels sacred because it's never guaranteed to stay. When we accept the transient nature of life, we stop taking it for granted. We learn to appreciate what is here right now, instead of mourning what was or fearing what might come. Acceptance turns ordinary moments into treasure. The laughter shared today, the warmth of a kind word, the stillness of a quiet morning, all become gifts, luminous precisely because they are fleeting. Resisting impermanence causes suffering. When we refuse to let go of what is gone or cling too tightly to what we love, we trap ourselves in tension. The more we grasp, the more pain we feel when life inevitably changes. Acceptance is not about liking change, but about understanding that it is natural. Nothing in nature stays still. Rivers flow, clouds drift, leaves fall, and life renews itself. You are part of that same rhythm. When you flow with it rather than fight it, Peace replaces struggle. Many people fear loss, but loss is not the enemy. It's the teacher. Every ending shows us where we were attached. Every goodbye reminds us of the fragility of connection. Yet, beneath all loss is a quiet truth. Nothing is ever truly gone, only transformed. The moments that pass become memories that shape wisdom. The relationships that end leave lessons that build strength. Even grief, though heavy, eventually softens and reveals clarity. Life takes, but it also gives. It closes doors to open new ones. Accepting impermanence is trusting that rhythm without demanding control. To accept impermanence means to live with gentle hands, not clenched fists. Hold what you love with gratitude, not ownership. Appreciate people for who they are now, not who they were or who you want them to be. Understand that everything you experience, both joy and pain, is temporary. When pleasure fades, you don't despair. When discomfort arrives, you don't panic. You realize that everything in its own time passes naturally. This awareness does not dull your emotions. It refines them. You still feel deeply, but you no longer drown in the tides. The truth of impermanence also invites humility. It reminds you that no success, no failure, no identity is final. The highs and lows of life are both temporary stages in a greater unfolding. You might feel lost today and confident tomorrow. You might experience sorrow this year and laughter the next. When you stop clinging to how things should be, you begin to see how perfectly life moves, even through the unexpected. The acceptance of impermanence turns uncertainty into wonder. In relationships, this understanding deepens love. When you know someone won't be in your life forever, whether through distance, change, or time, you begin to cherish each interaction. Words carry more weight. Presence becomes sacred. You stop arguing over trivialities and start valuing connection itself. Accepting impermanence teaches you to love without possession, to give without expecting, and to appreciate without needing permanence as proof. Love matures when it is freed from the illusion of forever. Impermanence also transforms the way you face pain. When sadness comes, acceptance reminds you it will not stay forever. When you're overwhelmed, this truth becomes your anchor. This too will pass. Even the heaviest emotions are like waves. They rise, crest, and fade. You don't have to resist them. You only need to stay grounded until they move on. The knowledge that no feeling is final gives courage. It tells you that healing is built into the design of life itself. Time and awareness do what force never can. They soften, they balance, they renew. There is beauty in endings when seen through the lens of impermanence. The last page of a book holds meaning because it completes the story. The final moments of a day bring rest because they prepare the way for dawn. Likewise, the endings in your life are not punishments. They are transformations. They create the space for what's next. The job you lose makes room for a new calling. The relationship that ends makes space for deeper understanding of yourself. Change is not the enemy. It is the process by which life evolves. Practicing acceptance requires mindfulness. Pay attention to the small changes around you, the fading color of leaves, the shift in your breath, the rhythm of a day moving toward night. Notice how nothing stays static, and yet everything continues. This observation builds trust in the natural order of things. You begin to realize that impermanence doesn't destroy life, it sustains it. The world renews itself through change, and so do you. When you resist impermanence, you fight against truth itself. You create anxiety, trying to hold what must move. But when you align with it, you move through life with grace. You stop rushing, because you understand that every stage has its own beauty. You stop clinging, because you realize that nothing belongs to you in the first place. You stop fearing the future, because you trust that whatever comes will also pass when its time has come. Acceptance doesn't make you passive, it makes you wise. Impermanence also teaches gratitude. When you know something won't last, you appreciate it more deeply. You stop waiting for perfection before being happy. You learn to find contentment in small things, a shared laugh, a moment of silence, a sunset that won't come again. You start living fully in the present, not as a concept, but as an act of reverence for life's fleeting beauty. Gratitude naturally arises when you realize every moment is both temporary and irreplaceable. Even your own emotions follow the law of impermanence. The anger that feels eternal today will be gone tomorrow. The joy that lifts you now will quiet later. You begin to understand that you are not any single emotion, but the awareness that observes them all. This realization brings inner peace. You no longer fear your feelings because you know they will change. You no longer chase constant happiness because you know balance is found in motion, not in times of deep loss. Acceptance of impermanence becomes the light that guides you through darkness. It doesn't erase pain, but it gives it meaning. You realize that grief is love without a place to go, and even that feeling evolves over time. The ache softens into memory, the tears into understanding. Nothing you truly love ever disappears. It transforms and continues through you. Accepting impermanence does not mean detaching from love. It means loving so purely that you can let go when life asks you to. Over time, the acceptance of impermanence leads to profound freedom. You stop clinging to the past or fearing the future. You live with open hands, allowing life to flow through you. You discover that peace doesn't come from holding everything still, but from trusting the movement of existence itself. You begin to walk lightly, knowing that everything you experience, every joy, every challenge, is part of a grand cycle of change that keeps life alive. To accept impermanence is to say yes to the flow of life. It's understanding that every arrival contains the seed of departure, and every ending hides the promise of a beginning. When you stop resisting this truth, you stop suffering from change. You live in harmony with what is, allowing each moment to unfold and fade naturally. Nothing stays forever, and that is precisely what makes it beautiful. Everything passes, but peace remains when you learn to let it. Number 6. Love deeply yet hold lightly. To love deeply is to allow the heart to open fully, to let warmth and connection flow through every part of your being. To hold lightly is to love without fear, without clutching, without the desperate need to control what cannot be controlled. The harmony of these two forces, depth and freedom, is what turns love from attachment into something sacred. Love becomes a shared experience, not a possession. It becomes an act of giving, not of grasping. True love does not trap. It liberates. It allows both hearts to grow in their own rhythm, to breathe without fear of losing air. When you love deeply yet hold lightly, you discover that love thrives best when it is not caged. The world often confuses love with attachment. We are taught to equate care with control, affection with dependence, devotion with ownership. Yet the deeper form of love does not suffocate, it nourishes. It doesn't demand constant reassurance or conformity. It invites presence, honesty, and trust. To love deeply means to care with your full attention, to give the best of yourself to another, to honor the connection that exists between you. But to hold lightly means to recognize that every person, no matter how dear, has their own path to walk. You cannot hold someone so tightly that they lose themselves in your grip. Love matures when it makes room for individuality. Holding lightly does not mean loving less. It means loving wisely. It is understanding that the people you love are not extensions of you. They are whole beings with their own needs, dreams, and struggles. You can share their journey, but you cannot define it for them. You can offer guidance, but not direction. When love becomes possessive, it loses its purity. It turns from a gift into a contract. But when love is allowed to breathe, it becomes something unbreakable because it is built on respect, not dependence. Loving deeply also requires vulnerability. It is the willingness to open your heart, to risk being hurt, to care even when the outcome is uncertain. It takes courage to feel that much. The one who loves deeply is not weak. They are brave. They choose to experience connection fully, knowing it may one day end. But their strength lies in the awareness that even if love fades or changes, the act of loving still enriches the soul. Holding lightly means you do not cling to the illusion of permanence. You savor love while it lasts, and you let it go when life asks you to. That balance is the art of peace. There is a quiet wisdom in knowing that love is not meant to fix or complete anyone. It is meant to enhance what is already whole. When you love someone, you don't carry them, you walk beside them. You don't take ownership, you offer companionship. You don't demand constant happiness. You share both joy and challenge with grace. To hold lightly is to understand that love is not about making someone stay. It's about making them feel free enough to choose. That is the kind of love that endures, not because it is forced, but because it is chosen over and over again. Many relationships struggle because people fear losing love. That fear creates grasping, jealousy, and control. The mind whispers, if I don't hold tight, I'll lose them. But the truth is the opposite. The tighter you hold, the quicker love suffocates. When you let it breathe, it grows naturally. The most peaceful kind of love is not anxious. It trusts. It trusts that what is meant for you will stay, not out of obligation, but out of alignment. It trusts that if someone leaves, it's not a punishment, but a redirection. Love cannot thrive in fear. It thrives in freedom. Holding lightly also applies to self-love. To love yourself deeply means to care for your well-being, to honor your boundaries, and to forgive your mistakes. But to hold yourself lightly means not to take every flaw as a failure. It means giving yourself space to change, to evolve, to stumble without shame. The same grace you offer to others must be offered inward. When you hold yourself lightly, you stop chasing perfection and start embracing progress. You understand that you are a work in motion, and that's what makes you human. There is a deep serenity that comes when you stop trying to force love to last forever. You begin to see it as a beautiful experience rather than a possession to maintain. Each connection becomes meaningful, not because it lasts, but because it teaches you something. Some people come to show you joy, others to reveal your wounds, others to remind you of your worth. Every form of love adds something to your life, even if it doesn't stay. Holding lightly allows you to receive those lessons without bitterness. You no longer measure love by its duration, but by its depth. To love deeply yet hold lightly also means to be present. Love only truly exists in the now. When you're worrying about losing it, you're in the future. When you're mourning what it used to be, you're in the past. But when you sit with it, feel it, appreciate it without demanding anything, you are fully alive in that moment. The more present you are, the more love you feel. It's not about controlling the story, it's about living the chapter you're in. Presence makes even the smallest gestures, a smile, a kind word, a shared silence feel infinite. It takes inner maturity to practice this kind of love. It means letting go of the need to own or define what love should look like. It means being strong enough to stay open, even when you know things can change. It means not chasing guarantees, but trusting in the goodness of what is unfolding. You can give your heart without giving up your peace. You can care deeply without losing your center. That is the delicate balance of deep love held with lightness. In practice, this looks like choosing patience over panic, empathy over expectation, understanding over control. When someone you love needs space, you give it with respect, not resentment. When differences arise, you listen rather than demand agreement. You don't tie your happiness entirely to their actions, because your peace is your own responsibility. You love generously, but you also protect your inner balance. You know that love cannot be forced into harmony. It grows best in acceptance. Even when love fades, holding lightly allows you to part with grace. You release without bitterness. You understand that endings are not failures but natural transitions. Gratitude takes the place of regret. You thank life for giving you the chance to love at all, for letting you feel what it means to care, to connect, to share your heart. You understand that every love story, no matter how short, has purpose. When you hold love lightly, you let it end peacefully instead of breaking under its weight. To love deeply yet hold lightly is to live with balance. It teaches that intensity and peace can coexist, that devotion doesn't have to lead to dependence. It's about learning to give fully without losing yourself. The one who masters this art can love fiercely without fear, care deeply without pain, and let go without regret. Love, when purified of attachment, becomes a force of healing rather than suffering. It teaches you how to connect without clinging, how to give without expecting, how to stay open without being undone. In the end, love is not measured by how tightly you hold, but by how freely you give. The heart that loves deeply yet holds lightly is unbreakable because it doesn't depend on outcomes. It simply expresses truth. Such love doesn't shrink when things change. It expands. It doesn't beg to be kept. It simply keeps shining. It knows that every moment shared in genuine connection is eternal in its own way. To love in this way is to be alive to the fullest, to walk through the world with compassion, strength, and peace, knowing that whatever comes and goes, love itself remains your truest expression. Number 7. Silence ego. Listen to truth. The ego is loud. It fills the mind with stories about who you are, what you deserve, how others should treat you, and what you must prove. It thrives on comparison, validation, and control. It wants to be right more than it wants to be at peace. Yet behind all that noise lies something quiet, something constant. The truth. The truth doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It simply exists, waiting for the moment when the noise fades enough to be heard. To silence the ego is not to destroy it, but to place it in its rightful position as a servant to your awareness, not the master of your life. When you learn to quiet the ego, you begin to hear the truth that has always been within you, calm and unwavering. The ego feeds on identity. It builds walls around the I and convinces you that you are separate from others, from life itself. It says, I am this, and not that. It seeks superiority or pity, anything that reinforces its sense of self. But the truth knows no such separation. It recognizes the shared humanity beneath appearances. It sees beyond labels, beyond status, beyond the endless chase for importance. When you listen to truth instead of ego, you stop needing to prove your worth because you understand that it was never in question. You are not your achievements, your possessions, or the image others hold of you. You are the awareness that observes them all, steady and unchanging. Silencing the ego begins with awareness. You cannot quiet what you do not first notice. The ego shows up in subtle ways, in defensiveness, in the need to win arguments, in resentment when not appreciated, in fear of being seen as wrong. Whenever you feel triggered or offended, the ego is usually speaking. Truth, on the other hand, is not reactive. It does not depend on others' behavior. It doesn't need to assert dominance or gain approval. The moment you become conscious of the ego's voice, you have already stepped outside of it. You are observing, not obeying. That small space of awareness is the doorway to freedom. When you silence the ego, humility takes root. Humility is not weakness. It is clarity. It allows you to see things as they are, not as your pride wants them to be. It helps you listen, not just to others but to life itself. The humble heart is open to learning, unafraid to be wrong, willing to grow. It doesn't resist correction because it values truth over image. The ego fears being small, but humility knows that smallness is not a loss. It is the path to wisdom. When the need to appear right fades, you begin to see reality more clearly. You begin to understand that growth often hides behind discomfort, and truth reveals itself in stillness. Listening to truth requires patience. The mind wants instant answers. The ego wants confirmation. But truth unfolds slowly, through reflection, silence, and sincerity. It doesn't rush. It doesn't flatter. It simply reveals what is real when you are ready to receive it. Sometimes truth arrives as a quiet intuition, a calm knowing that doesn't need justification. Other times, it emerges after pain, when illusions finally fall apart. The more you practice stillness, the easier it becomes to discern truth from egoic noise. Truth feels light and freeing. Ego feels heavy and demanding. The body knows the difference even when the mind argues. When the ego dominates, relationships suffer. It wants to be right, to be admired, to be the center of every conversation. It interprets everything personally. A simple disagreement becomes an attack. A difference in perspective becomes disrespect. The ego cannot truly listen because it listens only to reply, not to understand. But truth listens with openness. It seeks connection rather than victory. When you listen to truth, you begin to see others not as opponents or threats, but as mirrors reflecting parts of yourself. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to grow rather than a battle to win. The more truth guides your communication, the more harmony you create. Silencing the ego also transforms how you face failure and success. The ego ties identity to outcomes. It inflates when praised and collapses when criticized. It says, "If I fail, I am worthless." But truth sees failure as a teacher, not a judgment. It recognizes that both success and failure are temporary experiences, not definitions of self. When you are anchored in truth, external outcomes lose their power to define your worth. You move through life with steadiness, no longer chasing validation or fearing rejection. You still strive for excellence, but your motivation shifts from proving to expressing. You act from authenticity, not insecurity. There is immense peace in realizing that not every thought deserves your belief. The ego produces endless commentary, opinions, assumptions, comparisons, all masquerading as truth, but not everything the mind says is real. Many of its stories are projections of fear or desire. When you learn to pause before accepting a thought, you reclaim control. You can ask, is this truth, or is this my ego seeking comfort or superiority? That question alone can dissolve illusions. Truth doesn't require defense. It stands quietly, needing no validation. The ego constantly justifies, exaggerates, and dramatizes because it cannot survive without attention. To silence the ego, one must practice surrender. Surrender is not giving up. It is giving in to what is real. It is letting go of the need to manipulate outcomes or prove significance. It is trusting that life unfolds with intelligence far beyond the mind's limited perspective. When you surrender the ego's control, you discover peace, not because life becomes easier, but because you stop fighting it. You begin to live from presence rather than protection. You stop constructing identities and start experiencing existence as it is. Ego often masquerades as confidence, but they are not the same. Confidence comes from truth. Arrogance comes from ego. Confidence is quiet and steady. It doesn't need to announce itself or dominate others. Arrogance is loud because it's fragile. It must be constantly fed with validation. The more you root your confidence in truth, the less external approval you need. You begin to trust your inner voice, not because it shouts the loudest, but because it speaks with clarity and calm conviction. True confidence is not about being more than others. It's about being fully yourself without pretense. Listening to truth also reshapes how you deal with criticism. The ego reacts defensively, taking every comment as an assault. Truth, however, examines criticism calmly. It asks, is there something to learn here? If there is, it grows. If not, it moves on without resentment. When you no longer take things personally, life becomes lighter. The opinions of others lose their power to disturb your peace. You see that everyone speaks from their own level of awareness, and not all perspectives are meant to be carried. Truth filters out noise, keeping only what nourishes understanding. Ego thrives in chaos. Truth flourishes in stillness. Create moments of silence in your day, where you simply observe without reacting. Watch your thoughts pass like clouds. Notice which ones demand attention and which quietly dissolve. Over time, you'll see that you are not the noise but the awareness behind it. That realization changes everything. You begin to live less from impulse and more from wisdom. You stop being controlled by emotion and start responding with clarity. The mind still speaks, but you no longer believe every word it says. In the quiet that follows ego's silence, truth becomes unmistakable. It reveals what truly matters: kindness over pride, peace over victory, understanding over being right. It shows you that life is not a competition, but a shared journey. It teaches that fulfillment doesn't come from gaining more, but from being more conscious. When truth guides you, your actions become intentional, your words become gentler, and your presence becomes steady. You no longer chase meaning, you embody it. To silence the ego and listen to truth is to awaken. It is to live with eyes open, no longer blinded by illusion. It is to know that your value does not depend on approval, your peace does not depend on circumstances, and your purpose does not depend on recognition. Truth doesn't need to be proven. It only needs to be remembered. When you live from that remembrance, the world around you softens. You become grounded, calm, and unshakably free. The journey is not about erasing the ego, but mastering it. It will always whisper, but it doesn't have to lead. Each time you choose understanding over pride, patience over reaction, honesty over appearance, you silence it a little more. Over time, truth becomes your natural language. You stop living as a reflection of your fears and start living as an expression of wisdom. That is the quiet power of awakening, the moment you stop needing to shout because you finally hear what has always been true. Number 8. Set boundaries. Protect your serenity. There comes a time when peace must become a priority, not a privilege. Life will always pull at you. People will have needs, opinions, and demands, but your serenity is sacred. To set boundaries is not to build walls, but to define where your energy ends and where the world begins. It is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect your mental and emotional space. Without them, you scatter yourself in too many directions, saying yes to everything and losing touch with your center. But when you draw them with clarity and kindness, you create a life that breathes. You make space for peace to live. The truth is, no one else will guard your well-being for you. People will take what you give them. They will assume your yes means it costs you nothing, unless you show them otherwise. The world does not slow down for your exhaustion. You must learn to pause for yourself. Setting boundaries is how you teach others to treat you. It is also how you teach yourself what you deserve. It is not an act of anger, but of alignment. You are saying, this is how far I can go without losing myself. And when you hold that line with quiet confidence, your life begins to fill with calm rather than chaos. Boundaries are not meant to shut people out, but to keep your inner world balanced. They are not about controlling others. They are about choosing yourself without apology. You can care deeply for others and still say no. You can offer love and still need rest. You can listen with compassion and still refuse to absorb someone else's pain as your own. Emotional maturity lies in understanding that your energy is finite. If you give endlessly without replenishing, even love becomes heavy. Protecting your serenity means giving from fullness, not depletion. Many struggle to set boundaries because they fear rejection or guilt. They think that saying no will make them seem unkind or distant. But a boundary is not a punishment, it's clarity. When you say no to what drains you, you are saying yes to your peace, your health, your purpose. And those who truly value you will understand that your boundaries are a reflection of self-awareness, not rejection. The ones who resist your boundaries are often the ones who benefited from your lack of them. You cannot live in peace if you are constantly trying to please those who thrive on your silence. There is great power in learning to pause before committing your time and energy. Ask yourself, does this align with my values? Does this serve my growth or deplete it? Every yes should come from intention, not obligation. When you act from guilt, resentment follows. But when you act from alignment, peace follows. Protecting your serenity requires discipline. You must learn to disappoint others occasionally in order not to disappoint yourself endlessly. That is not cruelty, it is wisdom. You cannot be everything to everyone and still remain whole. Boundaries are not only external, they also exist within your own mind. Protecting your serenity means setting limits on what you allow to live in your thoughts. Worry, comparison, and resentment consume energy just as much as toxic relationships do. The boundary you set with your own mind might sound like this: I will not replay what I cannot change. I will not measure my worth by another's opinion. I will not let temporary emotions dictate permanent choices. This kind of inner discipline keeps your peace intact, even when the outer world becomes noisy. Serenity is not found by escaping life, but by managing how much of life you allow to disturb your inner balance. To set boundaries is to honor your emotional truth. You begin to recognize what feels heavy, what feels forced, and what feels natural. The body often knows before the mind does. It tightens in discomfort. It feels drained around certain people. It relaxes in safe spaces. Listen to that wisdom. Boundaries are not always spoken aloud. Sometimes they are quiet choices made from self-awareness. You might stop engaging in conversations that always lead to negativity. reduce time spent in environments that drain you, or simply choose silence over unnecessary conflict. Each small act of self-respect strengthens the foundation of your serenity. Healthy boundaries also enhance relationships. When you communicate your limits clearly, you remove confusion and resentment. People know what to expect, and you stop building silent anger from unmet expectations. Real connection thrives when honesty replaces pretending. You no longer say it's fine when it isn't. You no longer stay out of fear of confrontation. You learn to speak calmly and directly, without aggression or apology. I need some space. That doesn't work for me. I value this, but I also need rest. Such statements create peace rather than conflict, because they come from truth, not tension. Protecting your serenity often requires courage. The first few boundaries you set will feel uncomfortable. You might doubt yourself. The people who benefited from your lack of limits might resist, manipulate, or guilt trip you. But remember, discomfort is part of growth. Each time you hold firm, your self-respect deepens. The peace that follows will remind you why it's worth it. Boundaries are not built overnight. They are strengthened through consistency. You do not need to justify your boundaries with long explanation. No is a complete sentence when spoken with self-assurance and grace. It is also important to understand that boundaries evolve. The limits that served you yesterday may not serve you tomorrow. As you grow, your energy, priorities, and tolerance shift. Reassess regularly what feels aligned. Protecting your serenity is a lifelong practice, not a one-time decision. It is about staying in tune with yourself, your body, your emotions, your spirit. When you feel drained or restless, it is often a signal that a boundary has been crossed, either by someone else or by yourself. Realignment begins the moment you acknowledge it and take gentle action. Setting boundaries also teaches self-trust. Every time you honor your own limits, you reinforce the belief that you can rely on yourself. You stop seeking external permission to care for your peace. This builds a quiet kind of confidence that no validation can replace. You begin to live from intention rather than reaction. The noise of the world no longer dictates your pace. You move calmly, grounded in the understanding that peace is not found. It is protected. Sometimes, the hardest boundaries to set are with those you love most. You want to be available, supportive, and kind, but love without boundaries becomes burden. True love respects limits. It understands that distance, when necessary, does not mean disconnection. It means preservation. You can still love someone deeply and choose not to participate in their chaos. You can still care and refuse to enable. Protecting your serenity does not mean closing your heart. It means keeping it safe enough to remain open. Serenity is fragile when left unguarded. Every distraction, every demand, every unresolved emotion can chip away at it. But when you build strong boundaries, serenity becomes your natural state. You wake up with clarity instead of dread. You engage with others from peace instead of pressure. You move through life knowing that protecting your energy is not a luxury. It is the foundation of your effectiveness, your creativity, and your joy. Boundaries turn chaos into calm because they remind you where your responsibility ends and where life begins. There is quiet strength in saying no without anger, in stepping back without guilt, in walking away without bitterness. That strength grows each time you choose peace over people-pleasing, presence over exhaustion, self-respect over approval. Protecting your serenity does not make you hard. It makes you whole. It allows you to show up for others with genuine care, not resentment. When your peace is intact, your love is pure, your patience is deeper, and your life feels lighter. In the end, boundaries are not about separation. They are about alignment. They help you live in harmony with yourself. They make your yeses more meaningful and your no's more empowering. You begin to see that peace is not found in a silent world, but in a well-guarded heart. Serenity is not given. It is cultivated, protected, and renewed each time you honor your truth. When you master this, you no longer need to chase peace. You become. Number 9. Find strength in quiet surrender. There is a sacred kind of strength that doesn't roar, doesn't push, doesn't demand. It whispers. It breathes. It waits. It is the strength found in quiet surrender, not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of trust. There is a profound difference between giving up and letting go. One is born of despair, the other of wisdom. When you learn to release control, not because you've lost hope, but because you've gained understanding, you enter a peace that no amount of struggle can give. Life has its own rhythm, its own timing, its own intelligence. And sometimes, your greatest power lies not in forcing your will, but in aligning with the flow of what is unfolding. We are conditioned to equate strength with resistance, to fight, to push, to strive endlessly until something bends. Yet true resilience often looks like stillness. It looks like breathing through uncertainty instead of reacting to it. It looks like loosening your grip when everything in you wants to cling. Quiet surrender is not passivity. It is participation in the deeper current of life. It is saying, I will meet what comes with open hands. It takes immense courage to stand unguarded before the unknown and trust that life will hold you. There are seasons when effort becomes exhaustion. You can work harder, think more, worry endlessly, but the outcome will not change until you learn to yield. Surrender is not the absence of action. It is the absence of resistance. It is the space where clarity arises naturally, because you have stopped wrestling with what is. It invites life to breathe through you rather than against you. When you stop forcing the path, the right path often reveals itself in the silence that follows. Quiet surrender is an art, one that grows from humility and awareness. It asks you to accept that you are not always meant to control every detail, not meant to have every answer, not meant to carry every burden. It is the realization that some things are beyond your comprehension, and that is not failure. There is strength in saying, I don't know, but I will stay open. There is power in releasing the illusion that everything must go according to your plan. The moment you stop fighting what is, peace begins to bloom where struggle once lived. To surrender quietly is to trust in something larger than yourself. Call it life, the universe, or simply the intelligence of existence. You start to see that even the detours and delays have meaning. You stop labeling moments as good or bad, success or failure, and start recognizing them as teachers. When you soften into acceptance, the lessons life tries to offer you become clearer. You realize that surrender doesn't weaken your spirit, it refines it. It strips away what was false and leaves behind what is real. There is an elegance in no longer needing to prove yourself. You begin to let go of the constant battle to be understood, to be right, to control outcomes. You learn that peace is worth more than validation. When you surrender the need to win, you find that you no longer lose yourself in the process. Quiet surrender is the homecoming of the soul, the moment you stop chasing and start being. It's the realization that what's meant for you will never require constant struggle to sustain. Sometimes, life will take something from you that you believed you couldn't live without, a relationship, a dream, an identity, and it feels like breaking. But hidden beneath the pain is an invitation to release what no longer fits the shape of your becoming. When you surrender to the loss, you make space for renewal. Like autumn leaves falling, surrender is nature's way of clearing what must go so that new growth can emerge. There is wisdom in trusting this cycle, even when it feels like everything is unraveling. Surrender does not mean apathy. It means presence. It means meeting reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. It means holding your desires gently, without desperation. You can still dream, plan, and hope, but without attachment to how things must unfold. This softness allows you to adapt rather than break. Like water, you flow around obstacles instead of shattering against them. Quiet surrender gives you the ability to bend gracefully under pressure, without losing your essence. You will notice that the more you practice surrender, the lighter you become. The mind quiets, the heart steadies. You stop trying to control people or outcomes, and your focus shifts to what you can control, your inner response. You begin to trust the timing of your life, even when it moves slower than you wish. You find serenity in the waiting because you know that forcing only delays what is meant. Strength in surrender is the calm that comes when you stop chasing certainty and start resting in faith. This kind of faith does not belong to religion alone. It belongs to the human spirit. It is the quiet knowing that life has carried you through every storm before and it will carry you again. It is remembering that survival is not always about effort, but about allowing yourself to be supported. Sometimes the ocean holds you up only after you stop flailing. The very thing you feared would drown you can become the thing that teaches you how to float. There is also a deep compassion that grows from surrender. When you stop clinging to control, you become gentler with yourself and others. You realize that everyone is doing the best they can with their level of awareness. You stop fighting reality and start embracing the imperfect beauty of it. Forgiveness becomes easier because you no longer demand that the past should have been different. Acceptance becomes your anchor. You begin to move with life rather than against it, and that harmony brings a quiet joy that striving never could. In moments of deep uncertainty, surrender becomes your teacher. When nothing seems to make sense, when all your plans collapse, when the ground shifts beneath you, instead of grasping for control, you exhale. You remind yourself that perhaps this is not the end, but the rearranging of beginnings. You remind yourself that surrender is not the same as losing hope. It is choosing to trust even when the road is unseen. It is saying, I don't need to know what's next to feel safe here. True surrender does not numb you to life. It awakens you to it. When you stop trying to bend everything to your will, your senses open. You begin to see small miracles, the way light filters through the window, the way quiet moments hold warmth, the way something soft rises after every fall. Surrender brings gratitude back to the surface because you are no longer preoccupied with what's missing. You become receptive to the abundance already surrounding you. Strength in surrender is the quiet realization that life doesn't need your constant interference to unfold beautifully. It's understanding that you can participate with love and intention without controlling every detail. The more you let go, the more space you create for grace to enter. You find that answers come more easily when you stop demanding them. Healing happens naturally when you stop resisting what hurts. Peace arrives when you stop chasing it. There will always be moments when your instinct is to tighten, to brace, to fight. That is the human way. But strength lies in the choice to soften instead. When you surrender, you are not giving away your power. You are reclaiming it from fear. You are saying, I trust that even this has a purpose. That trust becomes your anchor through the unpredictable tides of life. It allows you to navigate change without losing yourself to panic or despair. And one day, you will look back and see how every surrender became a bridge that carried you from who you were to who you were meant to become. The moments that once felt like breaking will reveal themselves as openings. You will understand that surrender was never about weakness. It was about wisdom. It was about wisdom. It was about remembering that peace is not something you conquer, but something you allow. Quiet surrender is the art of aligning your heart with truth. It is the strength to kneel in stillness while the storm rages, trusting that calm will follow. It is the soft exhale after years of holding your breath. It is the beginning of freedom, the freedom that comes when you no longer need to force what is already unfolding as it should. And in that silence, you will find a strength so steady, so gentle, that it no longer needs to be proven, only live. Number 10. Master presence, not emotional distance. Mastering presence is not about withdrawing from life or building walls around your heart. It is the art of fully inhabiting each moment, of observing without being consumed, of feeling without being overwhelmed. Presence is awareness in its purest form, steady and clear, allowing you to engage with the world from a grounded center. Emotional detachment is often misunderstood as distance, but true mastery of presence is not about shutting down or avoiding connection. It is about showing up completely while maintaining your inner balance. When you cultivate presence, you participate in life fully, without losing yourself to every surge of emotion or every external distraction. The first step in mastering presence is noticing. Most of us drift through life in a fog of past regrets and future anxieties. Our attention is scattered, and our energy is diffused across countless demands. Presence requires returning to the now, grounding yourself in the breath, the body and the senses. Feel the weight of your body in the chair, the rhythm of your breathing, the sounds around you. By anchoring attention to what is real and immediate, the mind becomes quiet. The emotional storms that once dictated reactions begin to settle. You can respond to situations with clarity rather than react impulsively. Presence allows you to experience emotions without being swallowed by them. Rather than identifying entirely with anger, fear, or excitement, you observe the feeling as a current passing through consciousness. You acknowledge it, understand its source, and allow it to move without clinging. This is not suppression. It is mindful engagement. Emotions are not enemies to be avoided. They are signals. By mastering presence, you interpret these signals with wisdom instead of letting them control you. Emotional stability is born not from numbness, but from clear perception. One of the greatest misunderstandings about emotional detachment is the belief that it requires distancing from others. True detachment is not coldness. It does not reduce empathy, compassion, or connection. In fact, it deepens relationships because you engage with others from authenticity rather than reactivity. When you are fully present, you listen with attention, respond with care, and offer support without being consumed by another's emotional turbulence. Presence allows you to hold space for others while remaining centered. You give without losing yourself. Mastering presence also transforms conflict. In the absence of presence, disagreements escalate because the mind and ego dominate the conversation. Words are weapons, interpretations become judgments, and reactions spiral. Presence allows you to step into a different dimension. You can hear fully, speak deliberately, and respond thoughtfully. You are aware of your emotions, yet you are not compelled to act on every impulse. This does not mean avoiding confrontation. It means navigating it from composure rather than chaos. Your calm becomes a stabilizing force, creating understanding where tension once thrived. Daily practice of presence requires intentionality. It can begin with small exercises, like checking in with yourself several times a day, noticing your breath, your posture, your emotional state. Observe without judgment. Name what you feel. This simple awareness creates a ripple effect, gradually extending into how you interact with the world. Your presence becomes more consistent, less reactive, and more aligned with your values. The more consistent your practice, the more resilient your mind becomes to the unpredictability of life. Presence is also cultivated through observation of the world around you. Pay attention to subtle details, the texture of a leaf, the pattern of clouds, the cadence of someone's voice. Immersion in sensory reality reminds you that life is happening now, not in memory or imagination. Each observation strengthens your ability to remain anchored amid internal and external turbulence. In this anchored state, emotions are felt fully yet balanced. You respond with insight rather than instinct. Presence turns ordinary moments into powerful opportunities for clarity and growth. Another key aspect of presence is self-awareness. Mastering presence means understanding your triggers and habitual reactions. You observe when your mind begins to spin stories about what should happen or what others ought to do. You notice when your heart tightens in fear or desire. By recognizing these tendencies without judgment, you create distance between impulse and action. This internal space is where true choice resides. Presence is the ability to act deliberately rather than reflexively, to respond rather than react, to engage without being engulfed. Mastering presence is also a form of emotional literacy. You learn to distinguish between transient emotions and core truth. You feel deeply without losing perspective. You empathize without sacrificing clarity. You offer support without becoming enmeshed. Emotional intelligence and presence are inseparable because both require awareness, regulation, and discernment. The person who masters presence does not avoid the world. They embrace it fully, aware of both their own experience and the experiences of others. Presence transforms time. When fully present, moments expand. You are not rushing to the next task or lost in past regrets. You savor conversation, work, and stillness with depth and richness. Each interaction carries more meaning because attention is undivided. Life becomes less about quantity and more about quality. Emotional volatility diminishes because your focus shifts from reacting to experiencing. Presence allows you to inhabit the full spectrum of life without being swept away by extremes. The cultivation of presence also fosters resilience. In challenging situations, those who master presence do not collapse into fear or despair. They witness adversity clearly, assess options calmly, and respond effectively. Challenges are met as reality to be navigated, rather than enemies to be fought. Emotional balance is maintained because reactions are measured, not reflexive. Presence becomes a stabilizing anchor in a world of unpredictability. It teaches that true strength is quiet, consistent, and rooted in awareness rather than aggression or avoidance. Spiritual practices can deepen presence, but they are not necessary. Mindfulness, meditation, reflective journaling, and conscious breathing are tools to refine your ability to remain in the moment. Over time, these practices shift from being separate exercises to becoming natural habits. Presence becomes your default mode. You no longer live on autopilot or in reaction to external events. You live intentionally, with clarity and alignment, in every breath, every step, every encounter. Presence is the antidote to anxiety and regret. Anxiety arises from obsession with the future. Regret arises from attachment to the past. Being fully present dissolves both. The mind, when anchored in the now, finds space to breathe, to assess, to respond. Emotions are acknowledged but do not dominate. The heart is engaged without being overwhelmed. This is not an absence of feeling, but a mastery of it. Presence allows full participation in life, without sacrificing inner calm. Mastering presence is a lifelong journey. It requires patience, practice, and gentle discipline. There will be moments when the mind wanders, when emotions surge, and when old habits of reactivity reappear. Each time you return to the present, you strengthen your capacity to navigate life with poise. Each moment of awareness builds momentum. Over time, you cultivate the rare ability to live fully, feel deeply, and act wisely without being consumed by circumstance or internal turbulence. Ultimately, mastering presence is mastering yourself. It is the realization that emotional detachment is not about distance, but about clarity. It is about inhabiting your inner world while engaging with the outer world without losing balance. It is about responding to life with discernment rather than reaction. It is about showing up fully, listening deeply, and acting intentionally. Presence is the mastery of participation, the art of living in alignment, and the foundation of true emotional freedom. When you master presence, the world changes around you. Interactions become richer, challenges become opportunities, and moments of stillness become profound. You engage without losing yourself. You care without clinging. You feel without being overwhelmed. Presence is not a technique. It is a way of being. It is the culmination of all the practices of emotional detachment, self-awareness, and inner discipline. It is the quiet power that allows you to navigate life fully awake, fully aware, and fully alive.